Hey, welcome back. We have a lot to talk about. I was going to do a completely different video today. I was going to talk to you guys about how I once reversed my type 2 diabetes by eating great food and not starving myself of carbohydrates because I'm like, oh, bro, I love bread. And I really just didn't want to do that. And I didn't. And I had some great results. But we're going to have to get to that next week because I got to talk to Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike, my hubba internet crush. I've just discovered this guy recently, and there's been a rash of internet doctor educators over the past couple of years on YouTube, and I love Mama Dr. Jones, and I like me some Dr. Mike, but me and you, Dr. Mike, we got to have a conversation about women's health. Are you fatphobic? I hope not. Dr. Mike and his medium shirts and reassuring grin. First of all, I want to talk about my week in intermittent fasting, which was a complete failure because I went on a trip and there was steak and there were ice cream bars, and I may have been totally in control of the grocery list, but I'm going to blame my husband who bought all this crap. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. He's fine. He's great. Wonderful. Like and subscribe. Anyway, yeah, my husband's great. He did a lot of grocery shopping on our trip. We stayed in a little cabin, had a kitchenette, we had a grill, we had a fire pit. That means s'mores, that means hamburgers, that means hot dogs. And it didn't matter what time of day it was. It was hot dog o'clock at like 8 in the morning when I'm taking, leftover grilled hot dogs and pretty much just plopping them in my mouth. It was steak 30 at about 9 p.m. when we had a steak dinner out on the back patio of our cabin overlooking a beautiful pond. And really, this is a problem with American culture because, the constant celebration is so ingrained in our culture. It's like muffins for breakfast. That's cake. It's cake. My husband actually wrote a newspaper column about this once. That's how we sanction cake for breakfast. We eat it in the form of a muffin. So we have muffins, we have bagels, we have breakfast cereal. What the hell is Lucky Charms, man? It's like dried marshmallows and little puffs of rice. Purple horseshoes. I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know why we eat like we eat in America, where every day is a celebration. But I'm getting back on track right now, and so we'll weigh in and check in next week. And I'll also talk to you then about reversing type 2 diabetes with diet, because I think for some newly diagnosed people, I can probably help you out. So stay tuned for that next week. So I plopped down on the couch when we came in from our vacation, and I noticed that Dr. Mike had made a video.
I really want to like Dr. Mike on YouTube, but he really has some fatphobic tendencies. He's actually a fan of intermittent fasting, which is unbelievable to me considering he's a medical professional.
Hey guys, I just woke up. I was up in the middle of the night. We just got back from vacation and I was sort of keyed up. And it was like 3 in the morning and I hopped on Twitter and holy crap, people are really angry at Dr. Mike for suggesting dieting at all. And so Health at Every Size is definitely after Dr. Mike because he, in his video where he's responding to being called fatphobic, said, okay, well, I'm a family medicine doctor and I have to manage conditions that can be managed by diet. So I'm trying to as kindly and gently work with my patients to reach a more healthy size. It's really something though, because I only responded to one person who actually responded on a different Twitter thread about it, but she said she's a future doctor who doesn't believe in diets. And I'm like, man, if this were my family health provider as a type 2 diabetic, I would be screwed because I went through my 20s completely convinced that, dieting was pointless. I'd been heavy my whole life. I was just sort of doomed to being heavy. And then that was just going to be my lot in life. And what happened is cute 28 years old, and suddenly my health started falling apart. I had, severe hypertension that would weirdly come and go. I had started the beginning of, severe insulin resistance. Not that I didn't already have it. As a teenager, I started developing acanthosis nigricans, which are the dark, scaly at your, like the folds of your neck, or I had it on my chin, that are indicative of insulin resistance. And so even though my blood sugar was technically still normal, it was clear that my body was not coping with sugar well, even in my teens. My mom thought I just wasn't washing my neck. So by 28, it all went to hell. I mean, I was the kind of girl who legitimately thought, okay, well, people are just going to have to love me as I am, which today, of course, love me as I am. But I was fully in denial about the eventual health impacts that were going to befall me. Now, I have a few friends who are very, very heavy and are still metabolically normal in their 40s. And good for them. If I hadn't had kids, I may very well have avoided, the big type 2 diabetes diagnosis for a lot longer. But the truth is that those people, while they do exist, are not as common as you might think. And so avoiding any talk of dieting just isn't realistic. Once people get, headed toward their 20s, late 20s, early 30s, it gets less and less realistic to just be like, well, I can go outside and exercise and ride bikes and, eat healthy foods. And I'm just going to avoid the fact that my body mass my actual adipose tissue may be causing my body not to be able to deal with insulin as well, and I may eventually develop type 2 diabetes. I don't need to tell you this. Diabetes can lead to blindness. It can lead to chronic kidney disease. It can cause you to lose limbs. It's not as easy to manage as let's, get on one of the designer drugs and then we're going to rock out and just be fine. Because the more time, one of the reasons we're doing intermittent fasting right now, the more time between meals, the less food input into your body, the more time your body has to deal with the carbs that you've already put in it. And so intermittent fasting works well for people like me with type 2 diabetes. There are probably, you can Google it, 15 diet doctors right now who are saying, this is what, we're getting great results with intermittent fasting or a combination of intermittent fasting and keto. And what I really love about Dr. Mike is that he'll go out and try this stuff because he knows what I know, which is that diet science fluctuates. And that, 1 week it's, well, you're going to kill your arteries with cholesterol. And then the next week is, oh, maybe you're causing inflammation because of all the sugar you eat. It's just the studies are competing and people are trying to prove their own theories and, disprove someone else's theory. And then there are, vegetarians and vegans who have their own agenda. And so it's really hard to tell what's going to help specifically very heavy people who've been heavy their whole lives and are now having, actual health issues related directly to their size. And I love that Dr. Mike's willing to go out there and try it and tell you the pros and cons and pitfalls. And he's not just, eye rolling and being like, oh no, don't want to diet because I don't want you to feel bad about having to diet. Now, that said, being a heavy woman who has to walk into any doctor's office is fraught with peril. I have had stomach issues since 2002, and I have been blown off by so many doctors. And what eventually culminated after I had been told that I didn't have gallstones over and over again by eye-rolling dismissive doctors who assumed that I was a hysteric because I'm heavy. I ended up with pancreatitis, a horrible case of gallstone pancreatitis, so much so that I could have died. And I still have lingering issues today and got blown off by, one of the best GI doctors at one of the most impressive medical centers in the country, because he was just like, well, the procedures we would have to do to find out exactly what's wrong with you are just, too dangerous for someone your size. So we're just going to let it ride out because, we don't see anything wrong with your blood work. And I'm still suffering today. And that was, 2014. So if you walk into any family practice as a heavy person, you're going to get a lecture about your weight. And it's daunting for women, and they get so tired of being judged based on a number on a scale. It impacts our relationships, it impacts our jobs, it impacts our self-esteem. And I get the need to get back some of your self-worth by being like, look, I'm not going to be a slave to a diet industry that just wants to control the way I look. But I'm here to tell you, the health issues are real. They do catch up with people. And your best attempt to keep that from happening to you is early. If you can catch this early, if you can keep your BMI from rising above 40, I'll link you to the science that shows definitively if your BMI gets over 40, you have almost zero chance as a woman of getting back to a normal body weight at any point in time should you have those complications and need to shed adipose tissue in order to regain your health. And it's twice as bleak for men, literally, half the chance of shedding that adipose tissue and getting back to a normal BMI. I've spent my entire life being heavy. I definitely wish that health at every size could work for everyone, but unfortunately, adipose tissue itself causes insulin resistance. Adipose tissue itself clings to your organs. The other thing that I have that is compromising my health is a fatty liver. And it's just from being heavy, and it hurts. It sometimes causes me a lot of issues, and it can mimic cirrhosis. We can't pretend anymore that we're just not going to go on a diet and we're not going to try at all to shed some of this adipose tissue that can kill us. We have to talk about it, and Dr. Mike's willing to talk about it, and he talks about it in a respectful way. So let's, give Dr. Mike some props. Still have a crush on you. Still think you need to size up on those shirts, man. Thanks. But next week, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how to reverse type 2 diabetes without completely eliminating carbohydrates, especially for newly diagnosed people for whom it isn't too out of hand. Within 6 months of my original diagnosis with type 2 diabetes, after I gave birth to my first child, I had undetectable type 2 diabetes. My A1C was normal, my fasting was normal, my postprandial blood sugars were normal. And I'm going to tell you how to do that next week. You're going to do now with this video what you've done with every YouTube video you've ever watched in the history of the world. You're going to like, you're going to subscribe, you're going to hit the little bell so you know when I've uploaded something, and you're going to come back next week and we're going to talk about my successful week of intermittent fasting, let's hope, and we're also going to talk about getting type 2 diabetes under control. See you later. And Dr. Mike, call me. We got lots to talk about, especially maybe upsizing those shirts a little bit, just a little. See ya. Ow, my elbow. I always do this. What is wrong with me?